We are back. Episode 3 of the Draft C podcast, and the Ohio State Buckeyes are your national champion. Much of the nation is thawing out today, but we are here to keep you warm with a little Draft C sports talk. We are back today with my main man, Needham. We are without our guest, Jay, this week. We will miss him, but I'm sure he'll be back at a later
Definitely.
episode. But Needham, happy to have you today. It is just the two of us, man.
Hey, just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. That's what I'm talking about. You know
Man, you
what
beat me to it, man. Yeah, I was, I
I'm
was, I was ready. I was ready to go for my solo, but you beat me.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay. That's okay. Just the two of us. We'll get through it, man. So old 80s
yeah,
vibes, man. I don't even know when that was. That I
yeah.
just said 80s. I don't know. Anyways, how's your week been,
Was that
man?
80s? Was that
Maybe
70s? I don't know.
90s. I don't know. 70s. I don't. ABBA, I don't know. I don't know who it is. I have no idea. I suck at music. I'm just not a music guy. I've got a friend of mine. He would kill me to say that. He's like walls of records. I'm just like it's a beat to me. My ADD kicks in. I'm like, oh, I just don't think about it.
Oh, you
So
got that guitar behind you, man. Pick it up and play us
yeah,
something.
no. So I've been trying to learn how to play guitar for like 20 years. So I get started, and then like ADD kicks in. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do something else. So I'm gonna do it. Maybe when I
Yeah,
retire, I'll be able to learn how to play it. Who knows?
yeah, yeah. I hear that.
So
I hear that.
so Ohio State, man, that was a great game. You
Yeah,
called it.
yeah. Yeah. I kind of, I personally believe that Ohio State was going to win that game. I know we talked last week. My heart was with Notre Dame, but my head, if I was forced to make a bet on the game, I did not bet on the game. But I would have made the bet with my head and took Ohio State. But
Of course.
um, it was fun to watch. I had my dad over. We kind of did the football food and the game prep, and we watched it together. And when Notre Dame jumped out early like that, we were like, hey, maybe this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But as everybody knows,
No.
I'm sure that you watched the yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was all downhill after that
Yeah. It was.
opening
It was
drive.
rough. It was rough. We'll talk about it here in a little bit.
Yeah, what chill out.
Say it one more time.
Did you do anything special for the game, or did you just chill out?
I just chilled out, man. I mean, it was me and my TV and silence, So it was really good to just kind of chill out and not have any obstructions from the game. Anybody, interrupting the conversations about what new things are going on in the world. So I got a good chance to just relax and watch it. Yeah. At the beginning of that game, man, I was like, this is going to be a crazy game if this is going to how it's going to go out. But they couldn't keep up the momentum. And
Yeah,
again, Ohio came out. Yeah, so
yeah,
it was all
yeah,
good.
yeah. Now we got
Was
to
your was
sit through this.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead,
say,
man.
was your dad really like pumped up? Did he have some false belief that Notre Dame was gonna take it through?
You know, I think he felt the same way I did. We talked a little
Okay,
bit about it before the game, and
yeah,
he was kind of realistic with it. We're certainly not writing Notre Dame off. Could they have won the
mm-mm.
game? Sure. But I think that he had the same feeling I did. He's like, I don't know. They're going to have to play the perfect game to get by, and Ohio State's going to have to slip up, and they just didn't. They
Yeah,
didn't slip up.
it's all good.
But it was fun. It was a great accomplishment to make it to the championship game in the first year of the 12 team playoff.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's it.
they had a good season. Certainly nothing to hang their head about. But
No, I mean they made it to the national championships, man. I mean that's a huge
yeah,
thing. Regardless of
yeah,
how they got there or whatever. I know that people had a lot of issues. They made it there. They showed up. They put in a good effort in, man. I mean it was they didn't get railroaded. I mean it wasn't like
mhm,
it wasn't the I always think of these kind of playoff games as like sometimes you get these events where like the other team just doesn't show up at all. They made an
yeah,
effort. I mean, but it was they just weren't good enough. They just weren't good enough. And
Yeah.
going back to those
Yeah.
people that think, that say that, oh, they don't deserve to be there. Maybe, but they did their best, and they rocked it out. And at the end of the day, they lost. But heck,
Yeah.
anyone could have showed up, and the same thing could have happened. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point. Notre Dame's haters, like they keep repeating, they didn't deserve to be there. They didn't play enough good teams, whatever. Eventually you got to give credit where credit's due, eventually. And, they reeled off 7 top 25 wins this season. They won 13 games in a row. I don't care who it is, and I think that they even fell victim to that when they lost to Northern Illinois. I think that was a great moment for them for the rest of the season, because you can't let your guard down, and they did in that game, and they paid for it. Just like Ohio State did against Michigan. They let their guard down against a team that they were expected to beat. And that's the football season for everyone. You can talk about strength of schedule, but even in the games that you're supposed to win, you still got to show up and play and win the game. And it can happen. You can lose just like they did earlier in the season. So eventually you got to give credit where credit's due. They did beat 7 top 25 teams on their way to this championship game. People are going to say, well, 2 of those top 25 teams are Army and Navy. But they were ranked though. They were a top 25 team, whether you like it or not. You don't often see them in the top 25, but
no,
they were there, and, and they had great seasons. It's just a different caliber of team, when you're talking about Army, Navy, and then Notre Dame and Ohio State. I don't mean that to be derogatory towards Army and Navy. I love both those teams, but they didn't even compete against Notre Dame when they played them, and they were ranked in the top 25. So, anyways, that's a conversation for another time. We can talk about top 25 rankings and who should be there and who shouldn't. But either way,
you want to jump into these highlights and see and kind of review the game a little bit.
Yeah, man. Sure. We'll talk a little bit about it as we look at the highlights here.
All right, so let's watch this first clip we're going to come into. 1 second. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Marcus Freeman hoped to avoid in this opening series. It's a design run. Leonard able to plow forward. 1. Again, Leonard with the keeper, and yet again moves the 6 with little help as they drive the 6 with little help as they drive the pile. Slow to get up.
Let's look at this. Talking about almost a 9-minute drive to start the game. What's going to happen here?
They have one more 4th down conversion in him. They're going to try to run it. He does. Slams forward. What an opening statement by Notre Dame. They're on the doorstep here with a 1st and goal.
He's got 8 already in the opening drive.
1st down.
Man, in 10 minutes they got into their first drive, and they got in, and he was exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of chopped that up there to give you the theme of Notre Dame's opening drive, and it was Riley Leonard, right?
All the way,
dude was, yeah. Did you see the camera pan to him after that drive when he was on the sideline?
Did he throw up or something like that? I think I remember.
They didn't get that on camera, but
thank God.
Dude, yeah, you don't want that in your highlight reel.
No.
But he was exhausted. I mean, he got his brains beat in on that first drive, and it was impressive. As a casual viewer, you're like, dang, okay, Notre Dame 7-0, march down the field. So he had 35 yards rushing on that drive alone.
Wow.
Almost all of them right up the middle like that. The Notre Dame line was crushing the Ohio State line on that first drive. How many yards do you think he had rushing for the rest of the game? He had 34 yards on that first drive.
Well, after this run, man, I mean, after they got that point, they struggled. Ohio's defense was killing them. So I wouldn't imagine, it was, more than, maybe 100 or so.
6. He had six yards rushing for the rest of the game. He had 40 yards total, 34 on that first drive.
Wow,
Um,
that's crazy.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So even
That's I don't even.
but it wasn't sustainable.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I guess I said 100. I mean, he's not a running back, so he's not going to be going after like that. But the he's just so at the end of the day, if he would have maintained something like that where he was taking the ball in or whatever, he probably would have gotten more than 6. But he just kept getting Ohio just kept stopping him every time.
Well, yeah, and game flow after that opening drive kind of dictated the play calling. But even Marcus Freeman after the game, pretty much made a statement saying that they couldn't let Riley Leonard run the ball, as the primary means of their game plan. It's just going to wear him out, like it did in that opening drive. He was just toast after that. So that's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable game plan. I think here's his quote right here. It said, "We couldn't run Riley every play. It's not right for Riley, and it's not going to sustain the success we needed offensively." And that's true. You can't have your number one guy, bashing his head in against the Ohio State line every play. That's just not gonna turn out well in the end. And then as they fell behind, as the game played on, rushing the ball up the middle like that's just not that's not going to come into the game plan as much. But it was crazy though. The guy had over 900 yards rushing on the season. A great versatile quarterback. But yeah, so 34 yards on that drive alone. Notre Dame comes out, and you're thinking, wow, okay, 7-0 Notre Dame. They just took it right to Ohio State. What were you thinking at that point? Were you like, man, they might pull this off?
I was like, so you start a game like that, the underdog comes in and scores the first, the first strike, literally on their first, the first possession of the game. You got it.
Yep.
You're going to go into this game going, okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. And well, after that, it kind of fell down like a fizzle balloon.
Yeah. They, and that was the only way that they were going to win the game. That's how they played all season. That opening drive is how they played all season. They controlled the ball. They kept the ball moving, time off the clock. And that was the only way that they were going to beat Ohio State in this game. Unfortunately, there were 3 quarters left to play. And they didn't show up for 2 of those quarters.
Kind of went
Yeah. Somebody forgot to remind them that there's a third quarter. But it was cool to see him come out like that. We'll jump into the next set of clips here and kind of give you an idea of where the game went from there.
Oregon head coach Ray spotted it, but they couldn't do anything about it. So Ohio State gets even here. First minute of the second quarter. What a start to this heavyweight collision for the championship. First and goal. Judkins slips a tackle. Quinshon Judkins dives for the end zone, and Ohio State makes it 2 for 2 and takes the lead. Howard looking across the middle and has space, takes up, touchdown!
Nailed it. They got that.
Yeah. So it was all Buckeyes after that first score, man. Notre Dame couldn't stop them.
They continue to run the ball till the end of the first half. I mean, they had it right till the end.
Yeah, and that's a good point. They did run the ball too, and so they scored 3 unanswered touchdowns after Notre Dame's opening drive, and they weren't just big scores. They weren't just big pass plays. They averaged 11 plays and 77 yards per drive on those 3 touchdown drives. 11 plays. So I mean, they were doing everything that they wanted to do. They were moving the ball at will, running the time off the clock, just in complete control. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, that was hard to watch. But
Was a
if you're a
bit
Buckeye
unreal.
fan, yeah. But so yeah, they 11 plays, 77 yards, answered Notre Dame's opening drive over and over again. And then when the third quarter started, it was just more of the same. Came out third quarter, scored another touchdown, and just kind of downhill from there until Notre Dame found a little bit of life. Let's run one more set of clips here, and we'll kind of talk about the pulse that Notre Dame found towards the end of the game.
All right.
Buckeyes drop 8 in coverage and still get pressure. Leonard has to get it out, and that's Mitchell Evans, the tight end, the outlet. So back-to-back 3 and outs after the 18-play drive. That's the longest drive in fine. Special teams coach Marty Biaggi have been known to use some fakes and some trickery, and they need something here. And the rollout pass is incomplete.
So that wasn't quite where they found their pulse. That was still where they were dying. So I forgot about that set of clips. But you could see there, that was the highlights of Notre Dame offensively up until the halftime and their first possession in the third quarter there. You saw what happened there. Just punts and fake plays and
they could make it happen. They could commit. They couldn't finish. To actually get in the end zone. It was sad.
Yeah.
At that point, I felt bad for him. At that point, I was like, oh man, you see, kind of cringe, like, oh come on guys, you guys could do this. They weren't getting the conversions. They weren't getting them.
No. What did you think about that very last clip there? That the last play at the end of that clip where it was the third quarter and it was 4th and 2, and Notre Dame went for a trick play in their own territory, like pretty deep in their own territory. Early in the third quarter, do you feel like it was necessary? I mean, they were down by three touchdowns. They had no momentum. That much, you have almost a half a game left ahead of you. Do you feel like it was necessary for them to go for it on 4th down there in their own territory?
Of course not. But maybe he was hoping for Rudy too, and the sequel to come out.
That's right.
We talked about that last week. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to go for that. I have no idea. It's one of those things you never know what's in the brain when the coaches and stuff come up with these plays that they want to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Hindsight's always 20/20. When you're in the moment, man, you're like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. Here, watch this. Hold my beer. It's one of those things where, I think you can make it. I think we could do this. It's going to happen, but it didn't. It kind of fizzled out. So who knows?
Yeah, that's where you could almost feel like desperation set in. It's a chance. It's risky. Doing anything that they could do at that point in time to steal some sort of momentum. After I saw them go for that and not make the conversion, that's kind of when I felt like there was some desperation in the air. Mm-hmm. And then they don't get that. Ohio State, they did well enough to hold Ohio State to a field goal after they missed that, but you could feel the air coming out of the stadium from the Notre Dame fans at that point in time.
Well, I want to talk about that just for a second. So it's interesting. Motivation is a very interesting kind of thing. You can be really high on motivation. You can't always stay motivated, right? You trip up on something or whatever, and it holds you back, and it doesn't. You don't succeed. So to maintain, an entire team's motivation, morale in the process of just continuous fails to try to get the ball in the end zone is hard, and the fans saw it just like you said, and then if you're a player, motivation to getting tired because Ohio State is just railing on you all the time, putting so much pressure on you. It's demotivating, man. I mean, something you just need that break to just kind of reset your brain and like, we can do this.
Right. And I think that they did a pretty good job after that, for what it's worth. I mean, they go down 31-7 at that point, after they give up that field goal. So yeah, like you said, at that point in time, it's really easy to give up. But they you look back at the game and see how the Buckeyes were just controlling everything, and then you realize that there was a point in time in the game there where it was pretty late in the game and they were down by 8 points. Notre Dame somehow found themselves down by 8 points, which is one score, a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Yeah. So after that set of plays right there in that field goal, they go down 31-7. But in the next clip here, we'll see that they did find some life after that, miraculously. Even though the game felt like it was over, they still hung on and turned something out of it. So let's take a look at the next little bit here.
Pressure again. It's picked up and on the slant. The catch is made by Jaden. Greathouse is free. Greathouse gets a block. Touch.
Man, Jaden got it in, bro.
Yeah. Hey, how about that name, Greathouse? Jaden Greathouse. Yeah. How cool of a name is that? It just feels like a star name, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I mean, he's the number one wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
For Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Not in the nation.
No.
It's a great name. It's a great name. It is really good. Like you said, it's a great house. Not as good as Prince, but it's still a good name.
Yeah. No. But so, what a second half he had though, and you wonder what happens. He had 5 catches for 2 touchdowns, 115 yards in the second half. How many catches do you think he had in the first half?
Oh man, I don't know. 3 or 4.
One catch in the whole first half.
That's a bad play call. I mean, I think that's just bad play calls, or you're calling the plays.
Were they not looking to him in the first half, or did Ohio State's line just wear out and Leonard had more time to throw the ball, later in the game? Because Ohio State
was there coverage? I mean, the coverage could have been more on him, and they could have kind of shifted coverage a little bit less, or whoever was kind of covering him.
Yeah,
there's just so many options.
I mean, and they could have relaxed their coverage, with that kind of lead. You kind of play like a safer defense pass coverage when you have a big lead like that. Mm-hmm. So it could have had something to do with that as well. But what a second half to spark the Notre Dame offense. Because I mean they had nothing going. After that opening drive with rushing the ball. Put a stop to Leonard rushing the ball. I mean, he was basically obsolete. And then, somebody needed to step up, and this guy, starts making himself open and creating some big plays for Notre Dame. And, at the time, that particular touchdown, it kind of seemed a bit meaningless. It's like they got the touchdown, they got the 2-point conversion. They did all that just to pull within 16 points, Mm-hmm. So it kind of seemed a little bit meaningless at that point in time. But it did provide the spark that they needed. And, instead of being down by 24 points, 16 points, you start thinking maybe, you think maybe. So let's jump into the next clip and see how that, maybe started to pop up in their head a little bit more.
All right, this is the second to last clip, right? I lost track.
I think so, yep.
Yeah, that's it right. Here we go.
Block, touchdown, no inside pitch. Nice play design, better execution. Abuka weaving and dodging tackles, lost the ball at the end. They run him down. They haven't made a signal yet. Yes, it is a fumble.
Yeah.
So, Needham, quick question.
All right.
How did Notre Dame have such a good year this year? What were they doing all year that got them to this championship game?
It was turnovers, baby. I mean, it was all about the turnovers. Yeah. It was all about getting that ball back.
Yep. And it took them into the fourth quarter to get the first big turnover of the game. But boy, they got it. And I remember watching right before that turnover, the announcers were talking about, Notre Dame needing a turnover. It was almost poetic, almost like scripted, because they were literally just talking. Notre Dame really needs a turnover, and then boom, turnover. And so that they had scored that touchdown to come within 16. They get that turnover, and you're starting to think maybe are we going to witness some sort of historic, dramatic national championship game comeback?
Rudy too,
but
baby.
how did
That's
that?
what they're going for. I'm telling you, they're going for Rudy too. That's what they're going for.
They're building that script, man. Building that script. So what happened after that turnover there, man?
I just kind of
did they capitalize on that or no?
No, man.
No,
they did not.
They didn't.
Unfortunately,
the kicker's worst nightmare after that. They put together a pretty good drive after that turnover. I'm not sure why they attempted the field goal there, because you're looking at 16-point deficit. They have a pretty good drive, maybe. Yeah, I don't fully understand it. I'm going to give the coaches credit for their decision-making process, but I don't know what the big difference is between 16 and 13 points. But anyways,
they had 14 minutes left in the game, or like almost 15 minutes left in the game at that point. So maybe it's like, oh, we can drive for we're guaranteed to get the percentage of possibility of gaining a field goal is greater than this, and we could possibly get a possession back, and then take the ball back down the other. Those are all the scenarios I think as a coach you have to run through, and what's the risk. But in the national championship game, I mean, there's a lot more risk involved. I don't know, man. I have to know what they're kind of going for it on the fourth down would be to see if they'd be successful. But like we said earlier, they were just getting owned by Ohio State.
Right. I think you're right. I think that I looked at how much time was left in the game and figured that they had to work with to just get 2 more touchdowns. And I think they also wanted to get that turnover, something positive out of it. They get that turnover. If they go for it on fourth down and don't get it, it's more deflating, I think. It ended up being deflated anyways because he missed the field goal. But I think that they just wanted to get positive out of that.
It was almost comical.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So go ahead and run the next clip real quick.
All right.
Waited to be alert for a fake. Again, the fake punt earlier was snuffed out. And the field goal unsuccessful. And
it's like a cartoon, man. I mean, you hear the doing, doing. I mean, it was just like, I was like, wow, how, it would have been great if it made the noise and it would have, fallen in on the other side, like, oh, almost, but they got it. But no, it was completely, denied. And sound effects do. I mean, there was nobody else to add the sound effects. It had the sound effects as a part of the effect, which made it even more comical.
I wonder how many times I've heard that going to bed.
Right, yeah. I think it's some cartoon, and you see the goalpost going, so, or some spring, whatever. It's like a spring sound effect.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So yeah, that was deflating. They did get the ball back after that, and they scored another touchdown to pull and got the 2-point conversion to pull within 8 points. But it really wasn't that close, though. I mean, somehow they got it to 8 points there, but it just never felt like it was a close game.
Right.
And but you did have that little brief moment where you're like, okay, this is 8 points. They just scored 2 touchdowns and got the 2-point conversions, and they're down by 8. So you're thinking maybe, and then Will Howard throws a 56-yard bomb down the field to Jeremiah Smith, and at that point in time the game was over. Notre Dame, they couldn't stop the clock, and then Ohio State kicks a field goal, goes up by 11. game's over. Ohio State is your champion of 2025.
Yeah.
But it was a weird game. Never felt like it was close after that opening drive. But somehow Notre Dame did find themselves down by one score at the end of the game. Kind of weird, though. Kind of weird.
I think the whole season was weird. I mean, I'll be honest. The whole season was weird, and I'm just going to say that because Clemson really didn't do a great job, and so for me, the whole season was weird.
That's what made it weird. That's what made it weird. 100%.
Okay. I mean, the whole world feels the same way I feel right now. I mean, Clemson, just no. No, but seriously, it was just it was an interesting season, man.
It was.
We got the new playoff, the way the playoffs were done. Interesting portal decisions by players. I'm excited because it brings a lot of unpredictability to NCAA football. So excited to see how next year brings for NCAA football, but also for DraftSee. We should have some exciting announcements next year when it comes out. But it's good stuff. But really great. I think just a great year overall. For DraftSee, we had a really successful year in the app. A lot of great feedback from the players that are playing. So it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The 12-team playoff really added another exciting element for DraftSee. I wasn't sure what to expect because we had to deviate obviously from our traditional playoff system for DraftSee. Mm-hmm. But it added a lot of excitement, and it creates that it gives people a chance. If you think that you're out of it, but your team keeps going deep into the playoff brackets, you have that chance. And just like kind of Jay was talking about that last week, he had Ohio State, and it all came down to that one game, and that allowed him, not just one set of playoff points like we've done in the past because he only had one bowl game, or recently you had 2 bowl games because of the 14 playoff. But those extra games allowed him to come back in his playoffs and come out with the win. So it was I wasn't sure what to expect with the way the playoff format would impact DraftSee, but it added a lot of excitement to it, and that makes me happy. So
yeah, I'm sure Jay's sister really isn't appreciative of it, but I know Jay is. So. Congratulations, Jay, on your league, by the way.
Yeah. I guess that's true though, right? There's 2 sides to every coin. For every happy Jay, there's an unhappy Jay's sister. So
that's right.
There could be somebody cursing the playoff system. It's like, they shouldn't have played that many games. But that's part of it.
That's it.
I'm happy about the way it's turning out, and I think this is better from here. Awesome. But now we get to have to more in a college football season, but we're going to talk a little bit about college basketball now.
Excellent. Before we do that, hey guys, if you like the video, if you like what you got going on, we want you to like and subscribe to the video, make some comments, let us know you hate us, you love us, thumbs up, thumbs down, whichever one you want to do doesn't really matter to us. We just want some feedback for the algorithm, try to get us at the top of the rankings and all the other good stuff. And we actually take a break for our sponsor, DraftSee Fantasy Sports, and we'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm here to tell you about the DraftSee Fantasy Sports app. Traditional fantasy sports can be stressful and time-consuming.
If I don't get a new quarterback by game time, my whole season is ruined.
I can't wait until fantasy football season,
said no wife ever.
Dude, I don't get it. It needs to be easier. That's where DraftSee comes in. You pick the teams, not the players. Enjoy the game again. Make DraftSee your new fantasy.
Dude, you need to be easier.
Dude.
I
didn't get it.
I didn't get it. We're back, man. We're back. Man.
We're trying
basketball.
To make it,
Basketball. I gotta get jacked up with basketball. We've got some really cool. I think we've got some really cool stuff about basketball. DraftSee, Draftsy basketball season, really cool. We didn't talk about one thing before we jump into basketball. 2 new apps just launched in Draftsy Fantasy Sports. Stats on Stacks. We talked about them, but they actually launched. They're live in the app right now. Stats on Stacks and Perfect Pick. They went live on Tuesday. And, weekly and daily games. And so if you're a huge basketball fan, jump in there. Play a perfect pick game, play a weekly game, a daily game, or also stats on stacks. If you're a stat nerd, you'll really enjoy stats on stacks, trying to figure out how to beat the team's average and seeing how well you do as far as that goes. So a lot of great stuff out there. Good feedback on the app.
Yeah, today's good to get into the games. Perfect. Got a lot of.
We'll pull up the AP Top 25 ranking as it is right now compared to Draftsy points in the season. Let's take a quick look at what that looks like really quick. So again, AP Top 25, Auburn, Duke, Iowa State, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Houston, Michigan, Kentucky. I mean, Auburn's got 2,046 Draftsy points, the SEC Conference. Overall, I mean, the amazing part is, Auburn's ranked number 1 in AP Top 25, and Duke is ranked number 2. Now, why I say that's interesting, you'll see in the next slide, how that differs. And Eddie, you can talk about that a little bit. Anything about this particular graphic you want to talk about in general? And so you may or may not know if you've played the game before. If not, these are the teams that have scored the most Draftsy points for the season. And you can take a look that, Maryland is ranked number 1. We'll talk about, why they're ranked number 1 here in just a little bit. But Maryland is ranked number 1 in Draftsy points over top of Auburn. I mean, Auburn's the number 1, AP Top 25 team. But Maryland's got, 2,070 Draftsy points on top of, Auburn's 240, 246? Is that what that says? And then you come into Iowa State. Again, Maryland's not ranked. You look at Iowa State. Iowa State's ranked number 3. They're also ranked number 3 in the AP Top 25. And then we get into some really crazy stuff. You got Gonzaga, not even ranked, but they're ranked 4th in Draftsy points in the nation. Oregon State 5th. St. John's, Florida State, Alabama. I said Duke again. Duke, the number 2 ranked team in the. And they were holding their opponent to less than, what was the number again, Eddie? I forget what the defensive point calculations. Is it 59 points? Is that what that is? They got to get down to 59 points. And then once they do that, they get 15 bonus points. So each time Maryland was able to hold the team back, they get that. But on top of that, they were able to also beat out some ranked teams and some ranked games that they were able to to win against, and then get additional maximum Draftsy points in those areas.
Yeah. Hey, how's this, Needham? I just switched over connection.
Much better.
Much better.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I don't know what you just covered right there. My apologies. But
no,
but Maryland.
I was just covering the fact that how how many points does Maryland have to hold them back to get the 15 defensive points?
To get the most, it's 58, and then the defensive bonus points decrease from 58 to 68, right. and then I think once you hit 70, there's no defensive bonus points. But look at Maryland's games here. I mean, 49, 52, 53, 37. They're loading up on defensive bonus points, and meanwhile they're scoring 108, 91, 96, 111. They're going off offensively in a lot of games, and defensively they're holding the teams to that defensive bonus range. They're not pulling off the big wins that they need to in their own conference, but they're still a completely relevant Draftsy team. Obviously, they're number 1 because of what they're doing in the other games.
Exactly.
So not only do you have to have your typical top 25 basketball knowledge, but there's a lot of value in teams from, the middle of conferences and conferences that you're not really paying that much attention to. If you look at that Draft C top 25 listing, you'll notice that there's a ton of teams from the West Coast Conference. It's a great basketball conference. Gonzaga kind of put it on the map. But look how many WCC teams are on this list. Yeah, you got Oregon State up there. The Pac-12 fell apart. Oregon State's now WCC in basketball. But when you're drafting your teams for basketball, you're not just looking at the ACC, the Big Ten, the Michigans, the Dukes, the North Carolinas. Needham, I think they're coming to take you away, man. What'd you do this time?
Who knows?
Which bank did you knock off this time?
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So you've got to pay attention to these other conferences as well. It's not just your Kentuckys and Dukes and North Carolinas, like I was saying. And that's what makes Draft C so interesting, is that you're opening up your mind to these teams that you've heard of. You see them show up once in a while in the NCAA tournament, but now you're really paying attention, and you're getting a much broader understanding of the college basketball landscape.
Right.
And that's go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the interesting thing is that you look at the differences between third, fourth, and fifth place. I mean, you're almost 2 to 3 points, each one.
Yes.
The fact that Oregon State ranked number 5th with 2,032 points, and then St. John's is 30 points below them. I mean, so it's St. John's and Florida are tied, for actually 6th place, but at the end of the day, the margin's so tiny between those three teams. So it'll be interesting to see, as the weeks kind of go on, how these teams kind of play and who drops off, in the list. But you want to look at Oregon State right now, see how they got there.
Yeah.
Let me pull them up.
And that's a great point in your observation there of how close in Draft C points these teams are in the rankings, and that just goes to prove how competitive this Draft C structure is, and how much fun it can be. You're looking at these teams that you wouldn't expect to be there, and here they are in the Draft C rankings, separated by 10 points from your Kentuckys and your North Carolinas. It just kind of proves the formula, and there's just so much excitement to be had with the Draft C basketball.
That's right.
Yeah, let's take a look at Oregon State.
Yeah, Oregon State, you can see right here, man. They've got 57, 48. I mean, they're still getting it.
Yeah, and again, so they're capitalizing on those defensive bonus points as well. 55, 57, 55, 45, 51. They're racking up on those bonus points, and you're going to see that more at the beginning of the basketball season. It's just kind of like football. Where you're playing the softer schedule typically at the beginning of the season. Same thing goes with basketball. So you're going to see those defensive bonus points come into play a lot more at the beginning of the season. So that's kind of what Oregon State has done here. This is forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that this is their first year in the WCC. I think the Pac-12 was still around in basketball last year, maybe not. But I would kind of expect Oregon State to do well in this conference in general. Yes, you've got some great competition in this conference. You got the St. Mary's and the Gonzaga who show up every year, but these are not the same size schools as Oregon State.
No.
But yeah. So they've definitely racked up on the defense bonus points as well.
Yeah, and let's get back to Duke here for a second, right? So Bradley Braves tied Duke in drafting points. 1,937 drafting points. Both teams tied for 12th place. I said 13th earlier for Duke, but they actually tied for 12th place here. Based on the graphics.
Tied, yeah.
Here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, geez, this
how cool
unranked
is that?
team. Yeah, this unranked team, and it's just it's crazy. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have drafted Bradley and thought that, hey, look, my team's going to score these points. Maryland the same way in Oregon State. But I mean, look at this. These guys are. I mean, not going to say they're nobody. I don't know if it's the team there, but I'm just saying compared to AP Top 25, they're. I mean, side by side with Duke, man. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's what's so much fun for me looking at this list. I just put this list together this morning, and as I was doing it, I was like, man, this is super cool. You got Santa Clara is on that list. Switch back to that list again. Let's take a look at some of these schools that give them their due, man. They don't get on these lists too often. Santa Clara, Utah State. Okay, so Arkansas State. Who thinks about Arkansas State in college basketball? You just don't normally think about that outside of this landscape. So it you got the SEC schools kind of loaded up at the bottom there. And that's
definitely got a harder schedule, I'm sure. But
and so what you're seeing here, that's another great point, man. Look at all these SEC schools on here. They're on here, maybe not in the same order as the AP Top 25.
Right.
But why they are on here is because they're getting so many more opportunities for those top 25 upsets. How many teams were ranked in the AP Top 25? I think there was at least, 7, maybe more.
Let's see that. SEC teams?
Yeah. So
1, 2,
5
3,
in the top
4,
10, 6, 7, 8, 9. I count 9.
10.
10. Well, either way, it's a ton of opportunity to get to those top 25 bonus points. And that's why you're going to see a lot of those SEC schools on that Draftsy top 25 listing, because they're capitalizing on those top 25 bonus points. Whereas your Bradleys and your Arkansas States, they're not going to have that opportunity to play those top 25 teams. So you're going to need those defensive bonus points, and you're going to need them to do well in their conference. But you got to have a mix, right? You have to have a mix of those top 25 teams that are, chasing those AP top 25 bonus points, and those smaller schools that are just going to smack the crap out of their own conference.
Mm-hmm.
They're having a great year, and they're going to dominate their conference.
Exactly right.
So it's a lot of fun. Brings a lot more interest in basketball for me as well. I know a lot of people, almost everybody I talk to, they're like, man, I love college basketball, but I don't really start watching it until, February or March when the tournament comes around.
Right.
But with this, you got something to pay attention to,
Exactly. Definitely keeps the entertainment value up and watching the games. I mean, Jay said it last week, it definitely, you're watching more sports because you care more about the teams versus the players. And, you're caring about some random team, Santa Clara or whatnot, that they're doing well because you're excited for them. So,
yeah. How cool it would be to walk up to one of your friends and be like, dude, Maryland is the #1 basketball team in the country right now. And they'll be like, what are you talking about, man?
Draftsy points, man. The Draftsy points, right?
Yeah. Dude, Bradley's number 12. Bradley's tied with Duke.
That's it. Hey, that's it. The new standard for instead of the AP top 25 would be the Draftsy top 25.
Bradley is just as good as Duke at basketball.
I know.
I swear, dude. I swear. I'm not kidding.
I swear.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
But
go figure.
Yeah, so that's where we're at, man. I might jump onto a perfect pick game myself today. So I think I'm gonna do that right after we get off get off this podcast. So
send me an invite. We'll compete. We'll play a
PvP absolutely.
Game. Awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right, well, folks, that wraps up our show for Draftsy podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next week we'll be back with some more stuff about basketball. Since the football season's over with, going to start up the baseball season here real soon, spring training. Until then, guys, make sure you like, subscribe. Love you guys out there. Keep playing the game. See you next week.